Hello, Internet, and welcome to my review for Sword Art Online Alicization episodes 19 and 20. When we last left off, Eugeo encountered Berkuli. They had a bit of a fight. Did not go... It went pretty well for Eugeo, actually, for a little while, as he managed to freeze Berkuli and probably would have finished him off if not for Chudelkin, the Prime Senator's interference, who is the worst character this franchise has given us in a while. I don't know if he's worse than Rios and Humbert, but he's up there. He's certainly not as bad as Sugo, but Sugo is not the bar you want to be compared to. But anyway, he gets carted off by Chudelkin to meet Quinella and become the next Integrity Knight that we see over the course of these two episodes. Before we go any further, just a reminder that it is now March, and so my Spring 2019 Anime Review Straw Poll is in the description down below. Fill that out, let me know what you want to see. Probably only one or two shows this next season, based on whether or not... There have been some rumors that SAO is going to go on a hiatus in spring for Monogatari. And if that happens, then there will be two shows on the block. But we'll see what comes of that. Anyway, moving on to the review itself. So we open kind of where we left off with 18 with Kirito. I forgot to mention in my recap. We also had Kirito beginning to tell Alice the story of her her actual history. And we get the sense. I get the sense here that Alice somehow suspected in the back of her mind that something was wrong with her birth. Her birth, I should say, by Quinella. Which has been alluded to a lot with Berkuli. I don't know if that was alluded to with Alice. I don't quite remember if there was any hint that Alice might, not fully trust, the system. But she's very open to, the story that Kirito tells, and you find out why, given that, she kind of, knew the name Selka. There's that bit where she's like, I cried out the name Selka night after night, every day, every night. And she didn't know why, and then suddenly when Kirito's like, that's your sister, everything kind of comes into focus. Oh, shit. Then we have a flashback. So Kirito, after telling her her history, tells her that, do you really think that the Integrity Knights, as you are now, can beat the entire forces of the Dark Territory? Which is kind of Cardinal's issue with the way things are right now. And we get a flashback of Berkuli, Alice, Fanadio, and Chudelkin. As Berkuli raises the question, we're not really in a position to beat back the forces of darkness. There are 31 of us, and there are thousands upon thousands of them. So we see that the Integrity Knights, even at the highest level, are kind of sympathetic to Cardinal's case, even if they don't know it, because they have never met Cardinal. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, the way the Integrity Knights are shown to not just be blind followers of Quinella and Chudelkin continues to be one of this arc's greatest strengths. As I said before, and as many people said before, SAO has a bit of a problem of making its villains just cackling lunatics that are completely unredeemable. But this arc is definitely, with especially with Dusselbert and Fanadio and Berkuli and now Alice, who does get redeemed this episode. They're still decided villains. The side of the Integrity Knights, most of them, with the exception of Alice, continue to work for Quinella, and Berkuli by the end of episode 20 has pretty much given up on the Axiom Church. But Fanadio and Dusselbert are they're still Integrity Knights. They're still allied with Quinella, but they're shown a measure of humanity that Kawahara has kind of neglected his villains in the past. Besides maybe Kayaba, who's weird enough as is. Anyway, also I brought up Kirito bringing up the whole Dark Territory invasion bit. I haven't in my read of the novels. I did just get this morning to the whole part where Cardinal lays all that stuff out for Kirito, and so it's definitely kind of resonant given what I've been reading. Given that how much episode 19 focuses on the world is still gonna end soon if we don't do something, and Kirito does lay out a plan to arm the people. There's still a year or two left before the Dark Territory comes, if we actually give people sword skills that aren't based on flashiness, there might be a chance to win. So good on Kirito for continuing to try to think up some plan that's not just delete everyone. That's Cardinal's current goal. But yeah, anyway. Then they start talking about Alice herself. And I don't know if I don't quite remember if Kirito brings this up first, but Alice does mention, like, there's the definite implication that undoing the synthesis ritual will eliminate the personality that is Synthesis 30. And I don't know if there's any evidence of that. Like, maybe I missed something, but, like, especially, it kind of makes it, I'd be much more okay with this, like, point blank, if they had made it a point that the Integrity Knights are all, like, heartless monsters that are, like, blind puppets of Quinella, but they made such a focus on the Integrity Knights as people that there's a kind of emotion. There's an emotional heft to the death of the Integrity Knights as their Integrity Knight selves, and I do feel like, especially with the long conversation about Kirito taking Synthesis 30 to Rulid before she becomes Zuberg again, that they're not gonna, like, treat that willy nilly. Oh, we're so glad that Integrity Knight Alice is dead and the original Alice is back. But also, like, if there is nothing remaining of the Synthesis 30 personality, that means, you know, Alice Zuberg will be, like, a 13-year-old in the body of a 19-year-old. That's going to be a huge shock if she gets her body back. We don't know how it's going to go, though. But anyway, after all of this, Alice declares her rebellion against the Axiom Church. And it is perfect. With the exception of the whole Kirito and Alice share an easily misinterpretable moment, because of course they do. That bit, I'm not a fan of. The whole, like, hold me tightly bit. It's SAO's not in its best impulses. But everything about that is great. Alice choosing the lives of humanity over any code is, like, phenomenal. And it's, for one thing, it means that her personality has not changed. You know, she's not all of a sudden, you know, Quinella is perfect and then Quinella is garbage. It's like, she's been thinking for a while, Quinella is supposed to be perfect, and yet there are all these flaws that will stop humanity from being adequately protected by following Quinella. And then, because her goal is always protect humanity. Alice's goal throughout all of this is protect humanity, and she'll do what she has to protect humanity. And, like, when she was more in Quinella's thrall, she would, like, that's kill Kirito and Eugeo because they're the threat to humanity. Now she realizes that the way Quinella set up this world, there is no way for this world to survive the Dark Territory. And that if she wants to protect humanity, she has to beat Quinella. So that's all great. But what puts it a step above is, like, she realizes the risk with the system alert. She's like, does that whole, you know, I'm gonna fight the church, I'm gonna kill Quinella, I'm gonna, like, bring the ability to, like, fight back into the Dark Territory to humanity. And then she feels the pain of the system alert in her right eye. And she, like, falters for a bit. And then she like, backs down for a second. And then she's just like, fuck it. And, like, screams out her rebellion against both Quinella and Wrath. And loses her eye. Her eye gets kind of better by episode 20. But she's still eye-patching it up. But that's really all we see of them. In episode 19. I'll come back to them in episode 20. So then we cut to Eugeo and Quinella. And Eugeo dreams of a log cabin that seemingly is house in Rulid, with Quinella as his mother, which is the opening stages of his brainwashing that I feared in episode 18. He is becoming Synthesis 32. That's happening. It happens, actually. By the end of episode 20, it happens. But anyway, he wakes up, and he sees Quinella's sleeping body, and he brings up the knife, the last knife they have left, the whole, like, teleporting to Cardinal knife, and he hesitates, because he wants to use it on Alice, which is a classic example of a tragic lack of communication. Even if it couldn't be helped, he had no way of knowing what had gone on with Kirito and Alice, but Eugeo has the chance to stop Quinella right there. He could have done it right then and there, but he doesn't, because he's saving the knife for Alice, even though Alice no longer needs it. And that's the death knell of Eugeo as he is, before he becomes an Integrity Knight. But anyway, Quinella wakes up and starts to tempt Eugeo in a really long sequence. And remember what I said about misinterpretable moments just a few minutes ago? Well, it's not. Quinella shows Eugeo a flashback of his true past with Kirito. Before Kirito like wiped from his memories, however many years ago that was. And she shows him a memory of Kirito and Alice playing like a field of flowers. It like looks kind of romantic if you look at it that way. And I think it actually would have worked better if she had straight up shown him, on the tower right now is Kirito and Alice hugging. Though admittedly, her whole point that Eugeo was never loved would have been not as effective if like by showing him a moment that was all that time ago. Even back then, Alice didn't care for you, which is patently not true, as the ending sequence shows us. Get to that in a little bit. But yeah, that's what's going on. Quinella's trying to convince Eugeo that no one ever loved him, and my big issue with that whole idea, is that it would work a lot better if the idea that Eugeo felt unloved had ever really been brought up. The idea that Eugeo felt unloved felt that other people did not love him is just something we have not seen before, so I don't quite know, like, it's just a weird point. I don't know. It just felt kind of out of nowhere. No one ever loved you, like, that doesn't really seem true. Maybe there's some, like, magic shit going on where she's, like, using some magic to make him, like, less likely to argue, but it's all just really odd. Anyway, back to the scene itself. Where was I? Yeah, I know where I was. So I do wish Quinella's temptation of Eugeo did not dissolve into sex appeal. It's just kind of awkward. Like, there was something interesting going on with the way, like, there's nothing sexual in that scene of Kirito and Alice. But kind of like, I don't know, the idea that, like, Alice also cared for Kirito is what's getting in Eugeo's way. But then it just kind of dissolves into, like, love me, fuck me, from Quinella. As, like, she takes off the robe and they have a kind of, it's not, I don't think it's actual sex, because if it is, it's too PG-13 to be clear. But I don't know, I just don't dig it. What I do dig, though, is at the last moment, as the end credits are playing, Eugeo sees the people who do love him, Ronnie and Alice and Kirito, all of whom are trying to stop him from giving in to Quinella. And Kirito being there strikes away the whole, love is sexual, love is romantic that Quinella is kind of peddling. And the fact that, like, or love is either sexual / romantic or maternal. And since, he was never the unbridled object of those, he's somehow devalued. Quinella's just wrong on a lot of reasons, and I hope that's the point. Also, Quinella's very clearly lying that she would ever be solely giving her like maternal love to Eugeo, because she has 31 other Integrity Knights. Admittedly, only 29 who have not openly betrayed her at this point, but still. Yeah, anyway. Either way, in the end, Eugeo gives in. He removes his core protection in a very sexualized scene with Quinella, and becomes an Integrity Knight. That's how the episode ends. Before I move into episode 20, one last thought. Was this... So, the way Quinella does it, as I've said, is very sexual. And is that how she's always done it? Because that's super weird, when you consider that, like, some of the Integrity Knights are literal children. Zell and Nell are, like, 10. Alice was, like, 13 when she became an Integrity Knight. Also, though, Zell and Nell do have weird enough backstories that, like, I don't know how they fit into all this, given they were Integrity Knights who seem to realize that they're not from the heavens. They're weird. I'm not going to talk about them because they're just really, really odd story-wise. Anyway, moving on to episode 20, which will be a lot faster, I promise. There's a lot to talk about in 19 and 20. There's not as much to bring up. Anyway, top of episode 20, we cut back to Kirito, who was just carrying an eye patch-wearing Alice all the way to the 95th floor while she slept, and they engaged in some bad hair romantics for a few seconds that it's not a big deal, but whatever. It's kind of bothering me because everything else was going like so serious and so like good and well written, and then it's like, oh, sweat, ag, you carried me up there, and then your sweat got on my skirt. It's a bother. Anyway, back to the plot. Kirito tracks the Blue Rose Sword to the 90th floor, where he and Alice find the results of Eugeo and Berkuli's fight, and we learn that Berkuli can still kind of move his face and stuff after turning to stone, even if it does, like, Alice is worried that it will kill him. But anyway, once they find Berkuli, Berkuli gives some comforting words to Alice about having broken the seal on her right eye, and that there's now nothing more Berkuli can teach her, and then tells Kirito what happened to Eugeo, and to hurry before Eugeo is turned. Whoops, that already happened. Actually, side note, it might not have happened by then, because when we find Chudelkin in Chudelkin's room later on, he seems to be watching a live feed of a scene in episode 19 before Eugeo is turned. So that might not have happened yet. Anyway, it's all the whole scene with Berkuli is fairly rote from a script perspective, even if it is necessary. But Berkuli and especially Alice's voice actors make it work. Like, Alice does some stellar voice work in that scene. It's phenomenal. Anyway. Then they leave. And Berkuli, interestingly enough, does not die in his mentor tells the heroes what they need to know and or hear and then die scene. You know, so the scene is really like setting up Berkuli to like die after telling them what they need to hear, but he lives. So I'm assuming Berkuli is going to be set free at some point, or they would have killed him, or he would have been killed off then. So Berkuli is going to live, I imagine. Anyway, so I've been wondering for a good long while, what the fuck is the Senate? You know, we have the four empires, and then Quinella's at the top, and then there's the Senate that's mentioned from time to time. We got a little bit more detail with it, with the existence of the Prime Senator in Chudelkin. But here we finally find out what's up with the Senate. As it turns out, we weren't supposed to know. Kirito did not know what the Senate was about, and even Alice only vaguely knew. But what she knows is that they observe who breaks the taboos and send out Integrity Knights to deal with it. Though Kirito senses there may be more to it, because it's unlikely that Quinella would like willingly give that much power to people. We find out that something more is that the senators are merely machines, or they're people who are like high level sacred arts users who've had their personalities wiped out by Quinella and are the creepy faces from episode 1 and episode 10, mindlessly observing those who break the taboo index. And it's honestly one of the creepiest scenes in the franchise to date that does not directly involve sexual assault, because those are always creepier. But beyond those scenes, it's a really unsettling scene. And it's really good. But then they find Chudelkin, because Chudelkin is loud and an asshole. And I hate Chudelkin. Not in like I hate a villain way. You know, he's evil and, you know, he's a dick. But like, he's just such a step down from all the Integrity Knight villains, who were all, like, complicated and have their doubts. Chudelkin is just a cackling asshole who's a bit more who feels like a step into Kawahara's worst villain tendencies. But, like, he takes all the effort the arc has placed into making sympathetic villains and just washes it down the drain with his, like, utter cheesiness. Still, when he inevitably dies, I am going to relish it. And we almost get that this episode. Alice stabs him right then and there. But he does some weird gas shit and gets away. Before he does that, though, he goes on, mentions, like, forced synthesis rituals, which we might get more info about later on. I can see that going either way. Given that Alice has already turned, and Eugeo turned willingly, I don't know if we're going to get anything about that. But it doesn't really matter, because all of that leads to the final scene of the episode, Eugeo Synthesis 32. He is not called that, but given the next episode is the 32nd night, and this one leaves off with the Kirito-Eugeo fight beginning, it's incredibly likely he is Synthesis 32. And yeah, he has a quick conversation with Kirito. The two of them go at it. Eugeo gets the Blue Rose Sword back, by the way. Oh, the high power incarnate arts, they're called, that only very few Integrity Knights have ever been able to master, including Berkuli. So there's something going on with Eugeo, because he should not be at that level yet. But yeah, that's where we leave off. Told you 20 would be faster than 19. Anyway, these episodes are both good. 19 is better than 20. Based primarily on 19 having the cool parallels between Alice and Eugeo as they both shift. Also lets us see the difference between Kirito and Quinella, their respective tempters. Kirito, brings Alice to the light with, the facts, with the truth, with what's going to happen, with the fact that the Integrity Knights, as they are now, will not be able to beat the forces of darkness on their own. Whereas Quinella, woos Eugeo over with love and lies. She's lying the whole time, but, convinces him that he's unloved, despite that's just not true. Also, 20 did kind of feel like just set up for 21, even if that creepy senator sequence is really good. 20 was still good, just not as good as 19. Anyway, next time, the Kirito versus Eugeo fight happens, I'm super pumped. So that's all I have to say for this video. Hope you all enjoyed the episodes and the video itself. If you did, feel free to drop me a like or subscribe or do whatever the fuck you want. I don't really care. And as always, people, keep kicking ass, and I'll see you in the future. Bye!